demo. All right, I'm going to start off clean with a completely empty system, and I'm going to start it up. And it's basically you can think of it as a wrapper around a file mount that goes to an AI to make files and set permissions and all this other stuff. So now that it's up, let's go into taking a look at it. There's some administrative stuff, like all the actual templates that it shows in the site and style sheets and stuff that's actually all in the site itself. And there's also this very app. Latest version is mounted into here. So index.html is like literally like this app. Okay, so it's empty and there's nothing in it. And say that I'm in the middle of working on a mapping app. So I have, map.html, map.css, vi, and so I'm working on the final touches on it, and then I make some change to it. And when I deploy it, all that I do is I will make a tarball of the app and just do a post of it. In this case, with an account ID that identifies the user as data binary as a tarball. And if I didn't have permissions on it, it would fail to actually upload for delete as well. And then I give it a directory that I want it to install into, and it will unpack this tarball into this directory because I said install equals true. Otherwise, I would literally be putting a tarball up. Okay, so let me actually put that tarball up. And yeah, and again, it's the same tree, a mapping application. So inside here, I have a little map application, and this is a volcano data for when the Taal volcano went off and buried my relatives in the ash. So I was working on this a while ago. So that's like an example of a small HTML app that you would put up, and if you have any data to go with it, it naturally handles large files. Large files are not a big deal. So let's do an example of that. The actual UI that's written in React is hosted like right here. So I have a static version of it that's like compiled in. But when I'm doing development, I want to do hot reloading. So like the NPM server on port 3000. What I did is I stood up a reverse proxy in front of everything. So, here's where I do rebuilds. When I rebuild, this is where I bring up the CMS. And this is where I bring up the NPM server. And since both of these guys are standing up, I stand up a small reverse proxy that was written by ChatGPT-4 entirely, by the way. It was written from a prompt, which is kind of amazing. And it worked on the first try. But this has been running for a while. But yeah, the US for older runs. But in any case, what it does is it says that, for URLs like registration files, search me, these are all part of my service that's running inside of Docker, and it's exposed outside of Docker. So port 9321 is the only thing you can see, like when I run Docker Compose. And I have all my services sitting inside of one container to keep things simple. And that would be like Chica to do text extracts from PDFs and from doc files, ImageMagick to do thumb labeling, FFmpeg to make thumbnails of videos. In any case, it looks in all these first, and if it doesn't match any of these, then it will basically just go to the NPM server. And the great thing is when you do this, you don't have to deal with cores at all. And in fact, you please don't want to do this because your cookies work correctly when you do it this way, because it all looks like it's one sandbox. So don't be doing any wacky stuff. Just like when you build with NPM, what you should do is set the URL. Let's see. Yeah, you need to set the public URL to dot so that you can host the app anywhere inside the tree. And that's the only thing you need to do when you're building it. When you are authoring the app, you do have to be a little careful that that when you come in here, TypeScript app, when I do my services, I'm expecting that the actual services that I talk to at the root, or so the endpoint is defined as just empty string. That way, no matter where you mount the app, it will just work normally. Okay, so let's get in here and actually upload a whole bunch of content. And I have a script for this here. Yeah. So I have a whole bunch of stuff in here, and deploy app kind of cherry picks some things to install into the server. So it's installing a bunch of stuff. For the most part, it installs it as a user Rob Fielding. It also installs it as Donica so that we can actually see that the permissions actually work. Okay. And while it's actually running, I'll show the search feature on this. So if I'm looking for a dog or a cat, then what'll happen is the word dog shows up somewhere in documents, shows up in here, and it's continuing to upload. If I run Safari, I have a different user here. And this user is someone with email, donica777@gmail.com. Right? That's like that cookie that shows up, the account cookie, basically maps to privileges, right? So the cookie is like the primary key for your user, and then inside the cookie is all the attributes, and importantly, it might be pseudonymous. You could actually make a cookie that doesn't identify you. That would allow you to do things like assert that you're an adult that lives in Virginia and then in the United States, and then a website could actually block things or allow things appropriately on that basis. So now I have two users, and if I look for dog and cat now, there's a hit in here and a hit in there, some hits in here somewhere. What I could do is I could filter it out to files to where I only get a hit on that, and then I filter the tree based on it. So that's the only hit. But if I want to see them under the directory for Rob, then what ends up happening is I get some stuff in the Bible, and I get that stuff there. Now, show that I actually uploaded a reasonable amount of stuff. Let's see, video. If again, just like uploading whole apps. Okay, so all right. So if I were to look on the look in here, I actually get a hit on this video. And why is it? It's because if I go look through the lyrics, the word that I looked for actually hits on this. And I do have like highlighted context. I'm not using it in this UI. I show it in the very raw API. Show example if I want to do like a completely raw search. Then what I can do is I can say I can use the URL the browser for this. That's like a really important feature to be able to use browser URLs for like everything. So say that I just want to find a word inside of a video, and I don't really care, anywhere inside the tree will do. And let's say or say JSON equals true, to say that I want a JSON result, and match equals ancient. Right? This is what the React app uses to get stuff back, but if I don't bother with doing it as JSON. I got the simpler templated interface. You just kind of like make sure that everything works, right? A React app is complicated enough that things could break. But yeah, I had this for context. But I'm not sending it into the app yet because I need to do something so that I can do that efficiently, because the trees could be quite large, and there's no point in having a feature that falls over when you do something useful with it. Okay. Yeah, so I have my tall map in here. One of the reasons why this all works properly is this port 8080 stands in front of the NPM server so that we can do like hot development, and demonstrate that it is doing development like real time, right? So I just changed it because I'm using like the actual NPM server. I've seen a lot of weird stuff, people trying to develop and not designing apps that mount properly into the tree. In fact, create React app by default breaks because when it's built, if you don't put public URL equals dot, it goes to like reference / logo dot actually images logo dot svg. But the problem is I don't own the whole tree. I only own the tree that's like where a map is mounted, and it really should be doing that in order for your app to work properly. So when you build your NPM apps, put public URL equal to dot, and you shouldn't have to make any changes. It's just when you install it, you should use a reverse proxy so that like all the cookies and stuff have merged it all into one tree, making everything like play nicely and act like how it really should. Let's see. The AI is critical. For instance, I only uploaded Book of Enoch.txt. I did actually explicitly put a thumbnail on it because you can't look at a .txt file and figure out what the thumbnail is, right? So I just explicitly uploaded Enoch.txt in the thumbnail. But yeah, and you'll notice that I like tried to do labels and moderation on it just because I uploaded it. That's probably unnecessary. But mostly it's like if I just upload a raw picture of this dude, I wouldn't know that it was in here unless I did a search and I ran into it, right? And you can see that there's a hit on that dude. And on a celeb detect, this is the reason why it hits, is because his name is Robert Oppenheimer. That's why it hit. So if you think about it, if you want full text search on a site, you can upload all the text images just fine. You can make thumbnail images, but what you kind of need a remote service to do is for the AI part. I don't think there's like a local equivalent to Tika where I can upload a JPEG and it will reliably tell me it's a person and figure out who it is. That required like a large language model that's in the cloud. It also does things like detection of potentially bad content. Like for instance, this photograph is marked in red and it says female swimwear or underwear, so that you can blur it out if you have to. And what is this? And oh yeah, it's the famous Nicki Minaj lollipop pic. Yeah, so we can find keywords inside of videos, and I could make a more complicated video player so that when it launches on a search, I can actually like launch it at the point at which the word appeared. I've done that before. It's a little bit of a complicated app, but you can do it. Yeah, and finding cats and dogs and pets, right? So if I want to look for pets, for the most part, all the hits are good hits. There is like one spot where the word profit gets cut in half, and I got a false positive on it. But for the most part, the AI could get it wrong too. But yeah, these all look right. The cool thing about this tree is it should be highly efficient. If I put like the whole file system, like tens of thousands of files, there is no reason when I close a node to keep any of those nodes, because when I open it, it goes out and reruns a query to get it. So I should have it where if I close this, all the stuff is deleted, and the in-memory usage should only be all the things that came back from the search, like a flat list of URLs basically, as things that are hits, and then the tree itself. And if most of the nodes are closed, it's always going to use a reasonable amount of memory. So this won't be something that like demo and then you go bring it to production and this file system's large and it falls over. I'm all about like at least thinking about this kind of thing up front. But anyways, this is my first time like really kind of trying to dig into React. I kind of stayed away from front end for like a long time. Like for the last 8 years, I've been a back end developer. So most of what I've been doing is this Go program, and it's actually not a huge amount of code, but just to make this component, it does require like a significant back end server to be written. I got to handle doing listings, searches, doing templating, allowing uploads. I have to have some kind of user system because these permissions actually work. It's marked as public, but it's read-only because that's Donica's account. And Donica comes in over here, and she looks at her stuff. It's read-write for her stuff. Right? And when I click on it, right, when it does that, it's actually loaded the tree. And you can look at this, and you can see there's a directory. But she can come in, and because some of these files are marked as for adults only, interestingly, this one was not marked for adults only, but the ones with the classification labels on it, she can't see them because the permissions on here, like in this case, I said that's the label and it's informative and it explains why you ended up with read access, right? You have read access because in your adult token it asserts that you are of age adult, and you get write access if you're email robfielding.gmail.com. And I can kind of explain why that matched by doing. So I have the email address and I am of age adult. So that's why that works. And also it does virtual files for the permissions so that if I am in a directory and there isn't like a permission actually set on the directory, it'll go look one up, right? So I may have uploaded permissions.rego into the root, and then I go way down the tree, and when I ask, what is permissions.rego, it doesn't actually exist on a file system. It just walked back, and then it serves up a virtual one that doesn't actually exist on disk. That way, if you have a directory where almost everything is of like the same classification, you don't have to upload a Rego file with it. But if you got different files with mixed classifications in one directory, there will be like file, and then there will be a file -- permissions.rego, right? And that's why this happens. So another dude.jpg -- permissions.rego. Anyways, that's it. I think this searchable file tree, it's a little weird. It's definitely like a full stack thing to make because I like had to make like that whole server, and it has to like talk to AWSRekognition. I'll show you what I mean by that. When I started the server up, I had set an AWS key, and there's also a secret that goes with the key. If you were to bring up this project, you clone it and get all these services standing up. If you don't have an environment variable for the AWS secret key and the key, what'll happen is your searches on images will fail because you'll be like looking for a dog. Those are called dgg.gif, and it wasn't obvious that there was a dog in it without an AI around. So that's it. I have been unemployed for the last 3 weeks, basically, looking for work. And I started this project basically like the next day because I need things to demo. I mean, there was a little bit of stuff in here that was like 48 hours worth of work before. I did like a 48-hour crunch to learn how to do Go and SQLite together. And I didn't actually use the database. I ended up using SQLite for full text search. I might move it to Elasticsearch at some point, but this is like great for making a single container setup that's easy to understand. I might split it up into microservices and say I no longer use Docker, and now you have to use Rancher, so it's all on Kubernetes. I might do that just to like show my full stack power. A little weakest on front end, but I've been up for like the last 3 days straight with almost no sleep learning React, trying to get closer because people don't like HTML templated interfaces. They want, like, when I say they want a front end, they really want like a React beautiful thing that a customer can look at. But I think this component is actually one of the cooler things I've done before. So I'm actually pretty proud of this. This is pretty good for like an early React app. But anyways, that's it. Thanks.